Hi everyone, in this video I wanted to share with you how to check for your page speeds. We've been getting inquiries about certain pages LeadsHook being slow, and in almost all of the cases that we've checked, it's the underlying page that is not loading the embed fast enough. So there are a few optimizations you can do to fix that up, and I'll be sharing that with you in this video. Or firstly, to work out, what's causing the slowness or the perception that it's slow. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do that first. So here's a decision tree. I'm going to make sure that we start from the beginning. So I'm going to open up my incognito window, and then I'm going to paste it. But before you press the enter and go to the site, go to View Developer and JavaScript Console on the Chrome browser. I think Safari and Firefox have the same thing, but I find that the Chrome version is the one that's cleanest to read. It displays it much better than the other ones, so I prefer to use that. And once you're there, just go ahead and press enter. Right, so the decision tree is displayed. As you can see, it's embedded. So just want to share with you the order of the load. So this is from top to bottom, right? So this is what's loading first, and then going all the way down through the LeadsHook embed right over here, and then further down, and lastly the favicon.ico file, and then all the scripts that are going to run, which is your Facebook audience building and Google GA. As well as any other page views that are being pushed, and any JavaScript events that are being fired. Right, so they're all going to happen at the bottom of here, which is correct. So let's have a look at this in more detail to see what's happening. So if you have a look here, that's the underlying page. That's not LeadsHook, and it's loading in about 700 milliseconds. And if we keep going, it's still okay. So then there's a bit of a gap. So I'm going to move this forward, and yeah, this looks like a manual process, but it's not. It's just to sort of understand what's happening behind the scenes. So LeadsHook is still not loaded at this point. The embed has just been fired, and we're already sitting at almost the 0.7 second mark. Almost, we're still less than one second. 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second. So let's have a look at what's happening at the 1 second mark. I'm just going to move this up here so we can only grab. So far, it's still just the underlying page. LeadsHook hasn't loaded yet. All right, and then if I just keep moving further up, what I'm looking for to see is LeadsHook being loaded. So still hasn't been loaded at this point. Now remember, this is a $5 a month HostGator site without any caching or any of the optimizations in place, and so for that, LeadsHook is loading up. Right there is when it loads up for the first time. So if we just narrow it back down here, it's kind of like at the 2 second mark is when LeadsHook is being called. We're seeing sites with page builders that are loading lots of JavaScript and lots of heavy animations and stuff, where LeadsHook isn't loading for about 4 or 5 seconds. So that's the first thing to check for. Anything less than 1.5 seconds, less than 2 seconds is good enough. This is the HostGator site. It'll barely be noticeable to the average user. But less than anything more than 2, you sort of want to start looking at optimizations. Generally speaking, what should happen, if I just go back here to the beginning, is you want to have your CSS load first and then your JavaScript load second. We've got the optimizations that's going to be your primary source of performance gain. So be careful not to load up we see Facebook and Google loading all the way up here, which is a little bit silly because it's chewing up valuable time to fire elements that don't have any visual aspect, because usability is all about the visual perception, of the visual loading of the site. And so load up your visual stuff first. Secondly, if we go down the list here, we can see that all of the files are quite small, which is great. And so this, even being a $2 or $5 a month HostGator site with no optimization, is still reasonably fast compared to a lot of the other more expensive page builders that we're seeing. Right, so that's the first way to check. The other way to check is a comparison. So I'm going to quickly show you how to go about checking that. So let's just go back to open up a new page. I'm going to pause this for now, and I'm going to grab another link from LeadsHook. Okay, all right. So the first test that you've done, you should be doing, is an analysis like this to check the order of the loading of the scripts and when LeadsHook is loading up. Okay, that's the first thing to check. The second test is basically to grab the direct link version. So in this case, this one here, and you want to see how the direct link version is loading up compared to the actual page. So for that, we don't need the incognito page. I'm just going to go and show you this tool here called GT Metrics. So just go ahead and click that. And the first thing I'm going to do is grab my underlying page, which is this one here, and see how that's loading. Right, remember, once again, for this tester, it's a very cheap HostGator site, and it's going to queue up your job, and it's going to give you some data about the speed of this page. It's picked it up. It's happened reasonably quickly, so we can see that we got a B and a D, which is not the best, but once again, this is not a production site. All right, so I wouldn't run traffic to this. Now let's look at the direct link version. For that, I'm going to grab that and press this little button here called compare, and go ahead and enter that and go compare. So it's going to run the same test, and it's going to display to you the results side by side. So the first one is LeadsHook without the underlying page, or this second test I should say is LeadsHook without the underlying page, while the first one is going to be with the underlying page. So let's have a quick look. Right, so you have a look between the two comparisons, massive difference, and obviously the LeadsHook version is loading quite fast. So the challenge in a lot of this stuff is, how do you optimize this? It is really making sure that the underlying page that you've got puts priority, can't even say the word properly, on the loading of the embed, and making sure that the embed is given priority in the sequence or the order of loading on the page. So that's the primary goal. So what you want to do is load up your CSS images, and then the embed, and then comes all the JavaScript. Right? That's going to be, generally speaking, the basic order, unless there's a reason why a specific JavaScript file should be loading up early. Of course, you want to do that. But things like a lot of tracking analytics type scripts, they are being loaded up front, which is chewing up valuable render time on screen. So the issue isn't just about how fast LeadsHook is loading; it's also the bottleneck is the browser having to work with so many things to be loaded at the one time. So it's going to prioritize specific things, which is, so rather than leaving it to the browser to render things, you want to make sure that you explicitly tell the browser what to do. So for that, you need to control the order in which the files are being sent to the browser. Right? So a little bit technical, but which is why you just want to contact your page builder or your page builder software and see if there's anything you can do to delay the loading of your JavaScript files and prioritize CSS and the embed. And that's the main answer to how to solve this problem. Right? So the two tests, once again, the first test that you want to do is the order of the files, is checking this order. And then just flicking through, you could actually go ahead and do this and go to the right to the bottom and make sure that none of the files are big, which they're not, which is good. And second, the test is the GT metrics, and you can go ahead and do that. I prefer this over the Google page one purely because it displays a few extra things along the way as well. But the results from both will normally going to be pretty close. Like if this page is not loading fast enough, the Google page speed test will show the same thing. All right, so the usability test is not one of absolute page speed. It's the one of when are the visual elements on the page being displayed. That's what you're optimizing for. You're not optimizing for page speed as much as the visual element on, because that's what dictates user experience, not because you can keep loading up JavaScripts for the next 1 or 2 seconds. If the person's already seeing what your page looks like and they start engaging with the content, then it really doesn't matter what you're doing behind the scenes with the other scripts. So that's what we're optimizing for. Right, so I hope this gives you a good understanding as to what to check for to make sure that where the slowness of your page is coming from. And if you have any further questions, please send through a support ticket, and we can also help you to have a look to see what's going on here. Right, thank you, and bye for now.